Hi everyone, my name is Tori, this is Nova Life, and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a video that I recently just thought of because I saw that Shadow and Bone Season 2 recently came out on Netflix, and I know that once you watch a TV show like that or finish watching the season, you want more books that give you that same kind of feeling, whether it's the found family, the YA fantasy or fantasy elements, the friendships, the drama, all of that. So I put together a list of books. Some of these are part of a series that you can read right after watching Shadow and Bone Season 2. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into the books. So if you don't know this, Shadow and Bone is based on Leigh Bardugo's series, the Grishaverse series. Leigh Bardugo does have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. These two books are like a duology, and they're actually featured in the Shadow and Bone books. The characters are. So even though it's not called like the Six of Crows duology or anything like that, those characters do show up. So if you've only read the Grishaverse series, which is like a trilogy that Leigh Bardugo has written, I would definitely check out that one and read that one. It'll give you some more insight. I just want to throw that out there just in case anyone who hasn't read it. But the next book series that I'm going to talk about is the Throne of Glass series. So I don't know if you've heard of Sarah J. Maas. She is a very big, popular, more so fantasy romance author, but she does have a YA fantasy series called the Throne of Glass series. I will say that the found family aspect in this series, the drama, the strong female character lead, a little bit of romance that we get, the character development, the plot, and all of that stuff like that. It is a solid YA series. I think that if you haven't read Throne of Glass, and if you want to dive into a book series that's going to last you quite a while, and you're going to be reading it for quite a while, I would definitely check out the Throne of Glass series. I have all 9 books, plus the Assassin's Blade, which is like a book of novellas, but they're at the top of my shelf, and I was not bringing all of those down. They get bigger and bigger as it goes on. There's multiple characters, multiple stories, and I personally really love that. I do have a reading vlog reading that series, but it is filled with spoilers, so I will link it in the cards and in the description box below if you want to check it out. But just given that warning, the next one I want to talk about is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Maharan. So I have read the first 2 books in this trilogy. I did not continue with the 3rd book. I just haven't gotten to it. But this is also a really good YA series, like young adult, new adult kind of age. There is a lot of drama that happens. We have our female character. She is trying to figure out things about her and her past. I think that Shelby Maharan is a really interesting writer. She knows how to tell a story in a very simplistic way. So if you're looking for a series with not a huge fantasy world, like Throne of Glass is a whole fantasy world created from the ground up, but I feel like Serpent and Dove, the world that she set those characters in, are very similar to maybe like a historical setting, kind of in the past, with a mix of some elements of fantasy, I guess you can say. So you have, different witches and powers and this and that, and it is really interesting. The first book will grip you and bring you in. They do end on cliffhangers, but I would highly suggest this series too if you were looking for something that's on the shorter side. That's the trilogy. There's just 3 books. She hasn't written anything else. I don't think she's going to write anything else, but I really enjoyed her storytelling. It's very easy to dive into if you're not the biggest fantasy reader. So that one's a good one to start with. When I think of found family and what I think of the Grishaverse and the Six of Crows duology that Leigh Bardugo has written is found family. I love found family in any book that I read, but specifically in a fantasy. And the one fantasy-esque kind of paranormal series that comes to mind is Wolfsong by TJ Klune, which is technically book 1 in the Green Creek series. So this has a huge found family aspect, which is one of the reasons why I continue reading. So this is more on the romance side, and most of the characters are wolves. It's surrounding a wolf pack, but we see one of our main male characters at the beginning of the book, how he meets our other main male character, and they kind of have this very interesting friendship of, one of the characters hasn't really spoken after a while, and he opens up to the other character, and they are relatively young, and you see their friendship grow and develop over the first book, and you really get to see them come into their own, become adults, and then they have their love story towards the end of the book. And the other books in the series follow other people in the wolf pack and their own little romance. So I would say the main thing, the reason I would want anyone to pick up this book is the found family aspect. It is beautiful to me. It is I think all of the books in the series, I've read the first 2 or 3, but all the ones that I've read, they're all romances, or they have a romance between 2 male characters. And I personally really enjoyed the writing. It's on the longer side. The books are on the longer side, but TJ Klune really knows how to bring emotions out of you when you read books and make you feel everything for these characters, that you want to protect them at all costs. And I personally really enjoyed this series, so I would highly suggest checking this one out. The next book I have is We Hunt the Flame by Hafash Fazil. So I read this, I listened to the audio actually, and while this doesn't have a big found family aspect, the character growth that both characters, our main male and our main female character, go through is absolutely fantastic. This book came out a couple of years ago, and I read it. I picked it up because I heard some of my friends on Bookstagram talking about it, and I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I really, really enjoyed it. The world that she created is very similar to ours, but it feels like a faraway world at the same time. And you have these 2 characters. Our main male character, he is very like broody, very like, I guess you would say grumpy, but he has a lot of stuff going on. And the timeline I thought was very, very interesting. So that would be the one thing I would say can be confusing, is like the timeline of some things, because I was listening to the audiobook and not physically reading it. So I wasn't like looking at the page if there was any page headers or anything like that, or if like things were italicized. I couldn't tell the difference if it was like a past to present memory. But I would highly recommend this. I haven't continued on with the series, but I have heard nothing but great things from this author and the other books that they have written. And yeah, I want to continue more. I'm just not in the biggest YA fantasy mood. I lean more towards fantasy romance right now. I've read these books over the last couple of years, but I do want to continue at some point because I got attached to the characters. But I think the female character had really cool growth, and so did our main male character. But of course, as a woman, I kind of just relate more to female characters with their growth, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was beautifully written as well. Another book that I want to talk about is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. So this is Chloe Gong's debut book. It is a first book in a duology. This is kind of a Romeo and Juliet reimagining. I don't want to say retelling, it's reimagining. It's set in 1929 Shanghai. And I think that this duology, for being a debut for Chloe Gong, was written so, so well. And yes, she does have a publisher backing her, so she has all like the marketing and the editing and content editing as well. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. So we have 2 basically rival families that are, living in Shanghai at the time. At the same time, you have all this political unrest that is happening. So you have 2 people who are rivals that are not supposed to work together, that start working together for a specific reason that's happening in the city, and there's secrets and stuff like that. And they do have a really cool friend group that also does come together. It's not a huge found family, but there's 4 or 5 or 6 of them that come together to kind of help for what's happening in this book. I'm being vague because I don't want to spoil anything, but I found this duology really, really good. She does have Foul Lady Fortune, which is a new kind of spin-off series to this. I think it follows one of the friends that are mentioned in this book, which I haven't read yet. It was recently released at the end of last year, but I do have it on my shelves, and I'm really excited to read it because I love Chloe Gong's storytelling. I think she writes in a very unique way that just like hooks you from like the first chapter, and you don't want to stop reading. And that's how I felt when I read this duology. And yes, I had to wait for the second book to come out, and it does end on a cliffhanger, a pretty big cliffhanger. So make sure you have both books kind of in your hands to read back to back, because you're going to want to. The last book I want to talk about is actually a complete standalone, and that is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. So this is leaning more towards YA, I would say fantasy, but at the same time, they do have some horror elements. I read this during the fall last year, and I fell in love with this book. I thought it was so amazingly written. It literally drags you in, and you just want to devour each page. Like, I was just slowly reading each page, like hanging on to every move that the characters made. There is this mysterious aspect. We have our main female character, Signa. You see her as a baby. Basically, it's like what I would describe as a curse. Everyone around her just constantly dies. And so she is placed with this other family that's, relative to her family that they've known. And she can supposedly see ghosts, I guess you can say that's the right word. But there's this mystery going on with the family and one of the daughters of the family and the brother. And there was just a lot of things that I personally loved in this book. And it made such a like great fall read. I guess it was like the perfect book to read on like a cold, overcast, rainy day. It very much goes with the mood of this book, and I think she has another book coming out that follows one of the siblings in this book, and I'm extremely excited. I think it's coming out this year, but this is a complete standalone. You get the whole story in this book, and I will say there are characters that show up that you don't expect her to end up with, as in like a romance, but it's not romance heavy, and I was just not expecting things to go a certain way and things to come up and come out and secrets and stuff like that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was like a perfect YA fantasy book that I think a lot of people would enjoy. I'm just throwing this one out there because of the fantastical elements of some of you have a darker character, like in the Shadow and Bone series, where people particularly like it when someone should have been with the villain and they weren't. This is a book where the female character does kind of end up with, we'll say, the villain in the story. But those are just some books that I think that if you enjoyed the Shadow and Bone Netflix series, and if you've read the Shadow and Bone series by Leigh Bardugo, you would really, really enjoy these books. Let me know if you've read any of these books. For a emoji, if you're watching and you've gotten this far, drop me a wand emoji, like a wizard or something like that, just because we're talking about some YA fantasy books. But I want to say thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content from me. As always, I hope you're living novel life, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.